Germany when Hitler takes over, and how Hitler's going to change Germany to actually make people think that he's doing a good thing. And you read hopefully yesterday or sometime in the last 2 days about Hitler and the Nazis and their ideology and their belief systems, and we'll get to that a little bit later on. But right now, once you're in charge, Hitler, remember, he has taken the office of president and chancellor. He calls himself the Fuhrer now, the leader, and Hitler is free to do whatever he wants because he has all lawmaking authority. He handles the military. He's got his own private armies that he utilizes. And Hitler, though, once he gets in charge, he has a job to do. All right. One of the biggest problems that Hitler has to deal with is the economy. Just like any leader of any nation, the economic situation determines whether or not people are going to support you. And unemployment is a real issue for Hitler and the Nazis. Okay? And Hitler, like Mussolini and like Franklin Roosevelt and like a number of other leaders at the time, said one of the ways in which we are going to employ people is with what we call public works projects. Remember, those are building projects that we can employ, the government will hire people to do. Right. There's perhaps no bigger public works project that the Nazis continued with than this one. You might be familiar with it. It's called the Autobahn. The Autobahn is a highway in Germany that connected the country. It was a freeway akin to our interstate system. And that's where later on the United States is actually going to get the idea for the interstate system. The Autobahn is this massive road structure that crisscrosses Germany, and many portions of it don't have a speed limit. Even today, though, the places with a speed limit on the Autobahn, it's really high. So you can drive really fast on it, uninterrupted, and it allows you to get from across the country in a reduced amount of time. And part of the Autobahn, it's got some benefits in terms of shipping and travel, but it's a good way to put people to work because we're talking about thousands of miles of road that needs to be put down. So you're going to need engineers, you're going to need people to move earth, you're going to need bulldozers, you're going to need humans to do the labor. How much concrete do you have to pour in to this? Think about just the paint that you would need in order to put down these roads. And so projects like the Autobahn are going to employ a lot of Germans. So public works projects, it's a very common way to do this. And Hitler and the Nazis are like, hey, you want an opportunity to work? We're going to provide one for you. And so unemployment, public works projects like the Autobahn are one of the biggest ways in which the Nazis are going to employ people. Now, that's not the only way in which they are going to employ people. Remember, Hitler and the Nazis also said they wanted to rebuild the German military. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles very much limited the army to 100,000 men. They couldn't have an air force, and not only could they not have an air force, but they were limited on their navy. So Hitler and the Nazis, they changed that because they said, look, we can employ a lot of people by putting them in the military. And not only are you putting them in the military, but we need equipment for that too, okay? By the way, one of the other great public works projects of the time was building facilities for the Olympics of the day. Hitler and the Nazis, they put together a program to show off what they were doing in their country by hosting the 1936 Olympics. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But back to the military buildup. Hitler said, we can give people jobs. All right, we're going to put people to work. And notice this too, with every soldier that you see here, these soldiers need rifles, they need ammunition, they need helmets, they need uniforms. So increasing the size of the army not only provides jobs for men who are employed by the military, but also the people who make products that the military needs. Notice these people, looks like a drill inspection right here, where Hitler and his top officials are going around checking out the military. So just think if you're in clothing manufacturing and all of a sudden the Nazis are like, we need to expand the military. Well, you want to be able to produce uniforms for them, right? But it's not just that. Think bigger, right? The Germans start building more military machines, tanks. Think of all the metal, all the bolts, the ammunition that you're going to need to produce tanks. and they're going to want them in large quantities. So industry is getting going again as well, right? Right here, you see a shipyard. Germany starts building up its navy again. You can see swastika flags along the row here. And if you look at the people, they're giving the Hitler salute. The one hand, the right hand in the air, that is the Nazi salute. And they are pleased to see that the ship right here is leaving what we call dry dock. That you assemble it on land essentially, and then you kind of push it off into the water where it sets sail. Now, that, once again, think of the amount of jobs that provide. Think about welders, technicians, people who have to build this. Once again, it's going to need ammunition. You're going to need people to train to use this technology. All the technology that goes into a boat now. All right? It's a lot of work to be done. Okay? So Hitler and the Nazis are like, we got public works projects for people. We got a military buildup. They're putting people to work. Right? And Hitler also says, you know what? We need to make some changes to the way that we do business. One of which is this, that if you were an able-bodied male, right, you had to have a job. Right? The government would help you find a job, but if you were an able-bodied man, it was part of your duty as a German citizen to have a job. And people who did not want to work, they had a place for you. This right here is a picture of the early concentration camps. Later on, they're going to be expanded into much bigger facilities and much more secure facilities and more frightening. But initially, concentration camps were places for people who didn't want to work or other, quote, undesirable people. Right? So they said, look, here is a change to business that we're making. People who don't want to work, we have a place that we can put you. Fun fact, we call these concentration camps because there's a large concentration of people there, and the facilities are usually designed for far less people than in there. There's like an overcrowded camp. Okay? So, the Nazis make it pretty clear that if you don't want to work, we have a place for you. Now, something else they did here, okay, and you can see this part of the propaganda here was that in rebuilding the military and rebuilding the country, you see up there at the top 1918. Okay, and 1918, there's not a lot of industry, and nations around them are threatening them. You can see some planes right there above that little chain link that look like they're flying in, and they have to sign a peace treaty, and it's not a good time for Germany. You also see the Star of David in there if you look close, and that the Jews stabbed them in the back. And in 1933, when Hitler and the Nazis get into office, they break the chains and they start building their own military ships, and they start raising the swastika, the Nazi flag, and life gets a little bit better. Okay? So you have these public works projects, you have a military buildup, and some of the other changes they made to business, too, is they outlawed strikes and labor unions. Okay? Workers couldn't go on strike anymore. You go on strike, not only are you going to be in trouble with the authorities, but they might just toss you in a concentration camp and say, we don't have time for this silliness. There's an economic depression going on. People need to work. People need to be productive. Labor unions, if you try to make demands of your employers, sorry about your luck. You're going to work, the business is going to treat you fairly, and if you don't want to work, we have a place for you. All right? And here's the crazy thing about it. Hitler and the Nazis, when they make these changes, all right, things get more productive. This shows you the GNP, the gross national product, the value of all goods and services for the German people over time. And you can see that, remember, in the late 20s and the early 30s there, things are going downward. And in 1932, when the Nazis start to get in charge, look at that purple line. It is at a down point, okay? And it's going to increase over time significantly. In fact, people in the world looked at Hitler and they said, Hitler and the Nazis, for whatever it's worth, they might be disgusting in some of their values, but they performed an economic miracle in the country, right? And this is why a lot of people in Germany were grateful. They're like, Hitler did take some of our freedoms away, and he does seem to have an unhealthy hatred of the Jews, but the economy is doing really well. People had jobs again. They're able to provide for their families. And something else you have to remember too is that Hitler and the Nazis, while they threw people in concentration camps for reasons that were, uh, not good reasons, they also rounded up a lot of bad criminals too, murderers, rapists, thieves, etc. People who were committing crimes were absolutely punished. And so they went to prisons or concentration camps, and people said, Germany's a lot safer now. And you know what? We have jobs. We're able to feed our families and take care of people, and we can be proud of our country again. The military is strong. We're able to protect ourselves. We got screwed over by the Treaty of Versailles, and now we don't have to worry about that anymore. So they're willing to tolerate some of this. Okay? Now, once Hitler has fixed the economy to an extent, he also wants to implement some different values in terms of socialism and, social values. All right, and one of those is nationalism. Hitler wants Germans to love their country and to be willing to sacrifice for their country. And one of the beliefs that Hitler and the Nazis have is something we refer to as social Darwinism. And you saw that referenced in the article that I gave you about Hitler's belief system. And social Darwinism is this concept that it borrows from Charles Darwin. Okay, and if you remember, the theory of evolution suggests that only the strong organisms survive. And Hitler and the Nazis are like, if that's true in the scientific world, then maybe that should be true for when it comes to nations. And only the strong nations will survive, and that the strong nations will dominate the weak ones. Ooh. Now, here's the problem with Hitler and his social Darwinism. Fun fact, it was not, even though they thought it was based on Charles Darwin, the reality is that that's not what Darwin was teaching with his science. Darwin said the strong organisms are the ones who adapt, the ones who change over time with their environment. Okay? Now, in that regard, the Hitler and the Nazis, though, they believe in this idea of social Darwinism, that there are superior groups, there are superior people. That's part of their fascist mindset. And to show you that extent, they also said Germany should not only dominate the rest of Europe because it's a stronger nation, but the people within Germany, these people should only be the strong ones. Okay? And here what you see is a doctor in the white coat in the background, and you see a person sitting on a chair. And if you notice anything about this individual, they're sitting kind of awkwardly, crookedly, and they have a strange look on their face. And this person is what we would call mentally impaired, that they have something wrong with them. And the poster itself, at the top you see 60,000, and it says RM beside of it. 60,000 Reichmarks, they said, is what it takes to take care of this person. And the idea was, we are wasting our money, our valuable resources on people like this, who are not strong and don't deserve to be part of our nation. Right? The mentally impaired, you're going to find out, and you're going to have an article on them tomorrow to read, but the mentally impaired, those individuals are the ones that are going to be kind of the guinea pigs for, later on, what we would think of as the final solution. Right? You see another image right here where this one is talking about black people in general, and they're talking about the amount of money that it takes to take care of that person in an institution. And in this one, it's promoting euthanasia, saying that ultimately a mentally ill Negro, 16 years in an institution costs 35,000 Reichmarks. And the idea was, once again, we're wasting all this money taking care of these people. And they were trying to teach to the culture, and if you remember, euthanasia is, they think that these people should be killed. Right? At the very least, we'd be putting them out of their misery. And that's how Hitler and the Nazis sell this. It's a mercy killing. Right? Nobody wants to live this way. That's how they're putting it out there, that social Darwinism, the strong survive, the weak, they're not as important. Okay? Another part of nationalism in Nazi Germany is the idea that the Nazis wanted their country to be self sufficient. They wanted to be able to produce everything on their own and not rely on other nations. That other nations should not have any control over Germany. Because think about this. Remember, we talked about the United States cutting off Japan's oil supply. And the Nazis look at that and say, we don't want to have to rely on other people for resources. And if we can't have resources in our nation, then we'll just take them from somebody else. Okay? Self-sufficiency was important. Emphasis on the family is important in Nazi Germany as well. The family matters. Okay? They believed in a traditional family role where a man had a job to provide for his family, and women's role was being a housewife and a mother. And believe me when I tell you that the Nazis they venerated moms. They thought moms were terribly important. Okay, so much so that mothers could get one of these. All right, this is what you call a motherhood cross. And if you were a German woman, one of the most important jobs you had was to bear children for the Reich, for the German rule, okay? And if you gave birth to 4 children, you got a bronze motherhood cross. If you gave birth to 6 children, you got a silver motherhood cross. And if you gave birth to 8 children, you got a gold motherhood cross like the one you see here, right? They venerated women because women gave birth to people of the superior race. That's how important that they thought women were. And it's not that they just said that, hey, men and women have different roles in society, and women's role is to be that of a housewife and a mother, and mothers are important. Men have jobs, they work. Women, they have jobs, just different jobs at home. Right? Now, the family is important, obviously, but just not only on moms and dads, but children also. Okay, education becomes super valuable, and the Nazis start changing education curriculum. This right here is teaching. It's from a primer in a grade school book, and it's teaching this little kid right here on the bottom. It says he's learning the number 6, and they tell him that a 6 looks like the nose of a Jew, very crooked and ugly, right? And this comes from a book called The Poisonous Mushroom, and you're going to see more of that tomorrow as well. But they use things like this to teach little children not only like how to read and write and learn numbers, but they use it to indoctrinate their brains that, oh, well, Jews have ugly features. Jews are bad people. Okay? Even more, they teach children that doing things for the Fuhrer, the leader, Adolf Hitler, and doing things for the German nation are way more important. And you see them getting to do the little Hitler salute here, which creeps me out in a number of ways. But they're getting them to do the Hitler salute, and you see the adult right there modeling the behavior. Another fun fact, too, in schools, all classrooms had to have a portrait of Hitler in them. And let me tell you something. I don't care who our president is, if I like him or hate him, nobody's going to tell me that I have to put a picture up in my classroom of our president. Ooh, grinds my gears just thinking about it, right? Some of the math problems, even in this particular thing here, they're talking about how many people they can put in a camp, right? And the idea is that they're asking them to do math problems based on the right marks it takes to incarcerate people and keep them locked up. I mean, that's kind of creepy, right? What's the cost? Science textbooks are also altered to show us that the Germans, the Aryan race, that these people are the most physically fit and intelligent, and that they're superior in all ways. You read yesterday in the article about the Nazi belief system that there were several books that advocated racial theories that we now know are bullcrap. But one of them by Houston Stewart Chamberlain, he was not even a German, and he was saying the Aryan race is the superior race. And so German scientists rewrote textbooks to make sure that little children grow up learning that this is truth, right? Textbooks were changed and curriculum is altered to make sure that children are super important, right? If that wasn't enough, they started a special after school program for kids called the Hitler Youth. Ooh, right? And you see right here, you've got a little kid, a little blonde haired kid, and in the silhouette in the background, that's who you want your little kid to grow up to be like, the Fuhrer himself. Wowzers, that's pretty bananas. Okay, the Hitler Youth is kind of like the Boy Scouts with Nazi indoctrination. They focused on a lot of outdoor activities. Physical fitness is super important because we don't want weak people, right? You see right here, here's another recruiting poster for notice it's for Kampf struggle for the Fuhrer and the Volk, for the leader and the people. And that's the German student saying that you want to be a strong person, you want to struggle and have, you want to be able to struggle for the leader and for your people. Now, not only did you participate in these programs, and it was a voluntary basis, but it was strongly encouraged for your young sons to go to the Hitler Youth Program. And they had a program for girls too, don't worry. They understood the importance of indoctrinating females as well. And so they wanted you to be involved in this program for German girls as well. It was an alternative program, like a Hitler Youth Program for girls. And you can see they try to put out the blonde-haired, blue-eyed, stereotypical female that they wanted their children, the German children, to grow up to be like. So the Nazis understand that we want to emphasize strong over the weak. We want our nation to be self-sufficient. And we have to educate children about this at an early age, because if you grow up believing this, it's hard to get away from that. Some of the values that you grow up with as children, even if they're wrong, even if your parents have taught you something that's incorrect, it is difficult to get away from that. And so they realize early on the importance of educating the children in ways that they see fit. Right? We'll talk a little bit about the Soviet Union later on. Don't worry about them at the moment.